Thank you, Chairman Higgins. And good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the joint hearing on the Subcommittee of Border Security Enforcement and the Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Law Enforcement, and Intelligence. I thank my good friend and Chairman Higgins for convening this important hearing, a hearing to examine the heartbreaking realities and the high cost to Americans and those making the treacherous journey to the southwest border due to the Biden administration's failure to secure that very border. And this abject failure has unfortunately resulted in tragedies across the country and specifically in my home state of Texas. In fact, here with us today is Ms. Elisa Tambunga and her family, and I thank you for joining us. Elisa is a mother, but she lost her own mother, 71-year-old mother, and her 7-year-old daughter recently, when they were killed in a car crash in Ozona, Texas, when a human trafficker smuggling 11 illegal aliens was recklessly driving his vehicle, evading capture from the local police department, and struck the vehicle of Maria and Amelia, the 71-year-old grandmother and 7-year-old daughter. Elisa, thank you for being here today. The heartbreaking story that we face, unfortunately, is not the only one, and there are far too many. And I appreciate you being willing to share your stories here so that others don't have to go through that pain and tragedy. When you talk about Amelia and Maria, and you hear their stories, I've been told that Amelia was an outgoing fashionista. She was ready to take on the world. She dreamed of being a teacher, a social media influencer. She was active in sports. She was a model student at Ozona Elementary School. And she loved to play with her friends and dance with her Aunt Jenny and cook with her grandmother, Maria, who was also a dedicated member of the community. We also have Mr. Ramirez, who's a 9th-generation Texan here with us, a rancher from South Texas, who's in the 5th generation of the operations in the ranching business. And Mr. Ramirez, thank you for being here to share the stories about how this tragedy, this crisis, the chaos is impacting our agriculture business, the very business that feeds our nation. And we look forward to hearing your stories and your perspective. But this crisis has also resulted in the suffering and the death of so many migrants who make this journey to the border. Earlier this month, I led a bipartisan delegation to South America, to several countries in Central and South America. And that provided a firsthand look into some of the issues that are being faced there that are also facing us here. During this visit, we were able to meet with national security and law enforcement leaders in Brazil, Colombia, and Panama to not only discuss the rising threat of the Chinese Communist Party's influence in the region, but to investigate the evolving and sophisticated threat of transnational criminal organizations and the migration crisis that these countries are also experiencing as a result of a massive pull factor from the Biden administration and Secretary Mayorkas' failed immigration policies. Notably, we were able to visit the Darien region of Panama, where we toured a migrant village known as Baja Chiquito that migrants encountered in Panama after a grueling 7, 8, 9, 10-day journey through a very dangerous jungle known as the Darien region. There, approximately 1,500 to 2,000 migrants are encountered daily. They are coming out of the jungle in this treacherous journey. I'd like to put this in context. The Panamanian National Migration Service has reported that in the first 6 months of this year, 200,000 migrants have made that journey through the Darien region. From 2015 to 2021, in a 6-year period, there were only 97,000 total people that went through there. So what has changed? When I talk to these people, Sri Lankans, Africans from Nigeria, many people from Venezuela, as my colleague just mentioned, they all had one thing in common. They're headed to the United States because they know that it's open. We visited several other camps, and the tragedies that we saw from these migrants, a small boy, 8 years old, I will never forget his face. The cuts, the bruises, the scrapes, the damage to his legs from going through that jungle area, and then to think about the psychological damages. This child went through a very, very difficult journey. He could hardly walk on his own. not to mention the assaults that are happening to the young women, and the harrowing stories that each one of these people has to tell. We were briefed as well by Panamanian officials on Panama's operations in the Darien region, to include Panama's National Border Services SENAFRONT, about their work to register migrants using what's known as BITMAP, the Biometric Identification Transnational Border Migration Alert Program. And we learned that Panama leads the BITMAP program in enrollments and identifications of known and suspected terrorists, recently surpassing 100,000 BITMAP checks and identifications of those 100,000 of over 100 known or suspected terror matches and a dozen Interpol criminal matches as well. This is extremely concerning, as it is a significant increase, as I mentioned earlier, from prior years. According to DHS data, so far in fiscal 23, U.S. Border Patrol has encountered 140 individuals with derogatory information in the terrorist screening data set between ports of entry, in addition to 98 individuals encountered in fiscal year 2022. These figures compare to only 3 such individuals apprehended in fiscal year 2020, 0 in 19, 2 in 2017. What's changed? That's why we're here today. Let me point out as well that in the last Congress, in the 117th Congress, the DHS refused to release these numbers of potential known or suspected terrorists attempting to illegally cross into the United States. And only by holding them accountable were we able to ensure that this information was disclosed, as it previously was in previous administrations, to the public. At the same time, in that period of time, since President Biden has been in office, over 1.5 million illegal alien gotaways, and this is known gotaways, has successfully crossed the border undetected or detected, but unapprehended, and are now in the United States. These known gotaways they don't provide biometric or biographic information to U.S. Border Patrol agents. We don't know, in fact, when Secretary Mayorkas is here, he can't tell us who these people are. He doesn't know what their background is, what their intentions are, their criminal or terrorist affiliations. And there are some who may argue against the common sense reality that individuals on the terror watch list streaming across our border at record rates pose a threat to America's national security, both those apprehended between the ports of entry and those among the 1.5 million known gotaways since fiscal year 2021. These are fundamentally unserious arguments. This is a national security issue. Only an administration unserious about border security would continue to defend the very policies that have encouraged this chaos. There is also no doubt that the Biden administration's policies and rhetoric are encouraging hundreds of thousands of migrants to make the life-threatening journey through this area every single year, just like those that I encountered in the Darien region. These same policies incentivize millions of people from around the world to place themselves at the mercy of transnational criminal organizations, trafficking organizations, and other malign actors just to get here to the United States. Aside from the humanitarian crisis these failed policies have created, our nation is also battling a drug epidemic that is fueled by the illicit flow of fentanyl, xylazine, methamphetamines, and heroin that are crossing our southwest border at record numbers. More than 1,500 people per week die and are poisoned and die from taking some type of opioid, which we've never experienced a number like that in the history of this country. Securing our border is a critical first step to reversing this trend. Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden's failure to lead has left our country less secure. We must secure our border, and this committee will continue to hold the administration accountable for their action and, most importantly, for their inaction. The human cost, both to Americans and migrants alike, is far too high to continue to willfully ignore, because doing so is politically expedient. I'd like to thank all the witnesses for being here. You are part of the solution to helping us come up with ways to hold the administration accountable. And it's my personal opinion that we have plenty of laws on the books for our Border Patrol, our customs agents, ICE, and other agencies to do the job that they need to do to secure our border. And my last thought is, it is incredible to think that the administration is suing the state of Texas for doing the very job that the federal government should be doing according to Article 4, Section 4 of our Constitution. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing. I yield back.